The morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot as May parked her old sedan next to the gleaming luxury cars at Hartford Motors. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror and brushed a strand of hair back into her practical ponytail. No makeup today. She hadn't planned on visiting a car dealership after spending the morning at the community garden. May looked down at her faded jeans and comfortable sweater, both still bearing small dirt marks from planting new seedlings. She considered going home to change but glanced at her watch and decided against it. She wanted to have enough time to look at the cars before picking up her daughter from school later that afternoon. "It's just a car dealership," she told herself. "I'm not here to impress anyone." The truth was, May had been planning this surprise for months. Her husband's birthday was next week, and she wanted to replace his 10-year-old car with something special. He had worked so hard building their business from nothing, but still drove the same car from their struggling days. Now that the company had taken off, May thought he deserved something that reflected his success, even if he was too humble to buy it himself. What the salespeople at Hartford Motors wouldn't know was that May had spent hours researching cars online. She knew exactly which model she wanted, the specifications, the customization options, and even the current market price. She had spreadsheets comparing different dealerships and had chosen Hartford because of their exclusive inventory. As she stepped out of her car, May felt a flutter of excitement. She'd never bought a luxury vehicle before. Their life hadn't always been comfortable. Just 5 years ago, they'd been counting every penny, taking turns skipping meals to make sure their daughter always had enough. Back then, walking into a place like Hartford Motors would have been unthinkable. The dealership itself looked more like an art gallery than a car shop. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed spotless vehicles arranged on marble floors, each car positioned under perfect lighting that made the paint gleam like wet ink. May paused at the entrance, momentarily intimidated by the opulence. A group of salespeople stood in a cluster near the front desk, all in matching dark suits that probably cost more than May's entire wardrobe. They glanced in her direction as she entered but quickly returned to their conversation. Not one of them approached her. May wandered through the showroom, moving from car to car. Each vehicle had a small digital display listing features but no prices. "If you have to ask, you can't afford it," her grandfather used to say about luxury items. She smiled at the memory as she ran her fingers over the smooth paint of a midnight blue sports car. 20 minutes passed as May explored the showroom. She noticed how salespeople greeted other visitors immediately. A man in a tailored suit, an older couple dripping with jewelry, while she continued to be overlooked. She wasn't completely surprised. This had happened before in high-end stores after she'd spent a day working in the garden or playing with her daughter at the park. A woman in designer clothes entered the dealership and was immediately greeted by 2 salespeople. May watched their enthusiastic welcome and decided it was time to be more direct. She approached the least busy salesperson, a tall man with a nameplate reading Derek. "Excuse me," May said politely. "I'm interested in the new Phantom GT. Could you tell me more about the customization options?" Derek looked up from his phone, his eyes making a quick assessment of her appearance. His smile was professional but didn't reach his eyes. "The Phantom GT? That's our premium line." He emphasized the word premium slightly. "Yes, I know. I'm particularly interested in the limited edition model," May continued undeterred. Derek's smile tightened. "That starts at $250,000 before any customizations." He said the number slowly as if giving her time to process the shock. "I understand. I've researched it online. I'm specifically wondering about the interior options and if the wait time for custom orders is still 6 months. Something shifted in Derek's expression. Confusion. Perhaps that she hadn't been scared off by the price, but it was quickly replaced by skepticism. "You know, we have some nice pre-owned models that might be more." He searched for the right word. "You're practical. Or perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the economy dealership down the street. They have some great options with good financing terms." From the corner of her eye, May noticed a couple of other salespeople glancing their way, small smirks on their faces. She felt her cheeks warm slightly but kept her expression neutral. "I appreciate the suggestion, but I'm specifically interested in the Phantom GT. My husband has admired it for years." Derek's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see. Well, these vehicles are really for a particular type of client. The monthly payments alone are probably beyond what you're looking for." May opened her mouth to respond when her phone rang. She pulled it from her pocket and saw her husband's face on the screen. Perfect timing. She gave Derek an apologetic smile and stepped away to answer. "Hey, did you make it to the dealership?" her husband asked, his voice warm and familiar. "I did, but I'm not having much luck getting assistance," May replied, keeping her voice low. "What? Why not?" "Oh, you know. I came straight from the garden." "I'm in my old jeans and sweater." Her husband's laugh rumbled through the phone. "Ah, so they're judging the book by its cover, huh?" "Something like that. The salesman just suggested I might be more comfortable at the economy dealership." There was a pause, and May could practically see her husband's expression darkening. He had grown up with nothing and had faced similar dismissive treatment all his life, until his company had taken off. "Put the manager on the phone," he said, his voice calm but firm. "It's fine, really. I can handle—" "May, please. Let me talk to the manager." She sighed but nodded, though he couldn't see her. "Okay." May approached the front desk where an older man in a finer suit than the others stood watching the showroom. His nameplate identified him as Thomas Reynolds, general manager. "Excuse me, Mr. Reynolds," May said politely. "My husband would like to speak with you." Reynolds looked confused but took the phone with professional courtesy. "This is Thomas Reynolds. How may I help you?" May couldn't hear what her husband was saying, but she watched as the manager's expression changed from polite indifference to focused attention. His eyes darted to May, then back to the floor. "Yes, sir. I understand completely. Of course, Mr. Zhang. It would be our pleasure. I'll personally ensure, yes, she'll receive our full attention. Thank you for considering Hartford Motors." By the time Reynolds handed the phone back to May, his entire demeanor had transformed. Gone was the distant politeness, replaced by eager attentiveness. "Mrs. Zhang, please accept my sincere apologies for keeping you waiting. We'd be honored to show you our Phantom GT collection, including the models not currently on the floor. Would you prefer a private viewing in our exclusive showroom?" May took her phone back and spoke briefly to her husband. "What did you say to him?" she asked quietly. Her husband chuckled. "Just who I was. Sometimes that's all it takes. Enjoy picking out my present, love. Get whatever you want." As May ended the call, she noticed Derek and the other salespeople watching the interaction with growing interest. The tide was turning, though they didn't yet understand why. May smiled to herself, tucking her phone away. She hadn't come here looking for special treatment, but she wasn't going to turn it down either. After all, she had a surprise to plan. The private showroom would be lovely, she told Reynolds. "I'd like to see everything you have in the Phantom GT line." Reynolds gestured toward a hallway with a respectful bow of his head. "Right this way, Mrs. Zhang. May I offer you some refreshments while we discuss your preferences?" May nodded and followed, feeling the stares of the sales team on her back. The real surprise was yet to come. The private showroom was nothing like the main floor. Where the public area was designed to impress with its vastness, this room felt like an exclusive club. Soft leather chairs surrounded a small table with a crystal decanter of water and delicate glasses. The lighting was warmer, and only 3 cars stood on rotating platforms, each more stunning than anything in the main showroom. Reynolds gestured for May to take a seat while he poured her a glass of water. "Mrs. Zhang, I must apologize again for your initial reception. Hartford Motors prides itself on customer service, and we clearly fell short today." May nodded politely but said nothing. She wasn't one to make a scene, and truthfully, she wasn't entirely surprised by how she'd been treated. It had happened before. "Now, about the Phantom GT," Reynolds continued, his tone shifting to excited enthusiasm. "We actually have 5 variations, including 2 that aren't advertised on our website. They're reserved for our special clients." He pressed a button on a small remote, and the platform nearest to them began to rotate slowly, showcasing a sleek car in a color that seemed to shift between deep blue and purple, depending on how the light hit it. "This is the Phantom GT Celestial. Only 20 were made worldwide, and we're privileged to have one of them. It features a hand-stitched interior, custom sound system, and a motor that can take you from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. May stood up and walked around the car. Her husband would love this. He had always been fascinated by unique colors and limited editions. She ran her fingers lightly over the hood, feeling the perfect smoothness of the paint. "The color is beautiful," she said quietly. Reynolds beamed. "It's a proprietary pigment. They call it Cosmic Twilight. Each car in this series has a space-themed color that can't be replicated." As Reynolds continued explaining the car's features, the door to the private showroom opened. May glanced over to see Derek standing there, his expression caught between curiosity and disbelief. Behind him, two other salespeople peered in, not even trying to hide their interest. "Mr. Reynolds," Derek said, "I just wanted to check if you needed any assistance." Reynolds gave him a tight smile. "No thank you, Derek. I'm personally handling Mrs. Zhang's visit today." Derek nodded but didn't leave. "I believe I was assisting this customer earlier. Perhaps I could continue." "That won't be necessary," Reynolds cut in firmly. "You have other duties on the main floor." May watched the exchange with quiet interest. She could see the questions in Derek's eyes. What had changed? Why was this woman in gardening clothes suddenly getting VIP treatment? The truth was, May could have worn designer clothes. She could have arrived in one of their other cars, flashed expensive jewelry, or name-dropped her husband from the start. But that wasn't who she was. She had grown up in a small apartment above her parents' grocery store. Even now, with all their success, she preferred her gardening, her books, and her simple routines. Her husband often teased her about it. "You're the least pretentious rich person I've ever met," he'd say with affection. "Mrs. Zhang," Reynolds said, drawing her attention back to the car. "Would your husband prefer this model, or would you like to see the others?" May considered it. "I'd like to see them all before deciding." Reynolds nodded eagerly and guided her to the next platform where a matte black car sat like a panther ready to pounce. "This is the Phantom GT Stealth. It has all the performance features of the Celestial, but with added security measures. Bulletproof glass, reinforced doors, and an emergency communication system linked directly to local authorities." May raised her eyebrows. "Is that standard or an upgrade?" "An upgrade, typically chosen by our clients with high-profile positions. Celebrities, executives, political figures." Reynolds paused. "Given your husband's position, it might be a worthwhile consideration." May noticed Derek still hovering by the door, listening intently. She could almost see the wheels turning in his head as he tried to piece together who she might be married to. The third car was a deep emerald green with gold accents that somehow managed to look elegant rather than gaudy. "The Phantom GT Legacy," Reynolds announced. "This one focuses more on luxury than sportiness. The ride is incredibly smooth and the interior is designed for maximum comfort on long journeys." As they moved to the final two cars, which had been hidden behind a sliding panel, May heard a commotion from the main showroom. Curious voices and the distinct sound of someone important arriving. Reynolds seemed to notice it too, but remained focused on his presentation. "And finally, our crown jewel, the Phantom GT Monarch." He gestured to a car in a rich burgundy color. "Only 5 exist worldwide. The waiting list is typically 3 years, but we happen to have one available because the original buyer had an unfortunate change in financial circumstances." May walked around the Monarch, admiring its lines and features. It was beautiful, but something about the Celestial, that first car with the shifting blue-purple paint, had captured her attention. "I think my husband would prefer the Celestial," she said. Finally, Reynolds looked pleased. "Excellent choice. Would you like to sit inside? Perhaps even take it for a test drive?" Before May could answer, the door to the private showroom burst open completely and a tall man in an expensive suit strode in. His hair was perfectly styled, his watch alone probably worth more than most people's cars. May recognized him immediately as Anthony Winters, the real estate developer whose face was plastered across billboards all over the city. "Tom," Winters called to Reynolds, "I heard you had a Monarch in stock. Why didn't you call me right away? You know I've been looking—" He stopped short when he noticed May standing by the car in her gardening clothes, dirt still visible on her jeans. Reynolds looked momentarily flustered. "Mr. Winters, welcome. Yes, we do have a Monarch, but I'm currently with Mrs. Zhang, who is considering several of our premium models." Winters looked at May, then back at Reynolds with a disbelieving expression. "You're joking, right? I've been on your waiting list for months." The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Derek, still by the door, had a barely concealed smile on his face, clearly expecting May to be put in her place. Reynolds cleared his throat. "Mr. Winters, I assure you Mrs. Zhang is a serious buyer. Perhaps you could return to the main showroom and I'll be with you shortly." Winters scoffed. "Come on, Tom, look at her. She probably wandered in from the street." He turned to May. "No offense, lady, but people like you don't shop here. This isn't a public park. The room fell silent. Reynolds looked mortified. Derek's smug smile grew wider, and the other salespeople by the door seemed frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. May could have gotten angry. She could have name-dropped her husband, mentioned their company, or pulled out evidence of their wealth. Instead, she simply turned to Reynolds and spoke calmly. "I think I've seen enough for today. I'm still interested in the Celestial, but I'd like to consider it overnight." Reynolds nodded quickly. "Of course, Mrs. Zhang. Shall I prepare the paperwork for a hold? It would require a small deposit to ensure the vehicle remains available." "How much?" he asked. 10% is standard. So that would be— Reynolds hesitated. $35,000. Winters laughed out loud. "This is ridiculous. She's not going to—" May reached into her simple handbag and pulled out her wallet. From it, she extracted a credit card. Not just any card, but a black card known to be available only to the ultra-wealthy. She handed it to Reynolds without looking at Winters. "Will this be sufficient for the deposit?" she asked quietly. The room went completely silent. Reynolds took the card with a slight tremor in his hands, staring at the name embossed on its surface. Derek's smug smile vanished, replaced by open shock. "Yes," Reynolds said, finding his voice. "This will be more than sufficient, Mrs. Zhang. If you'll follow me to my office, we can process this in private." As they walked toward the door, May finally looked at Winters, giving him a small, polite smile. "I believe they have a lovely green monarch still available. It would look wonderful with your complexion." She walked past the stunned salespeople, her gardening clothes and simple ponytail suddenly looking like a deliberate choice rather than a sign of poverty. Sometimes, May reflected, the most powerful statement was the one you didn't have to make out loud. Reynolds' office was tucked away at the back of the dealership, far from the showroom floor. Unlike the flashy displays meant to impress customers, his space was practical and tasteful. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, and walls lined with awards and photos of him, shaking hands with various celebrities who had purchased cars from Hartford Motors. He gestured for May to take a seat across from his desk while he settled into his high-backed chair. The black card sat between them like a silent statement. "Mrs. Zhang," Reynolds began, his tone now warm with respect. "Before we process the deposit, I want to personally apologize for your experience today." "Had I known who you were from the beginning?" May raised her hand gently, stopping him mid-sentence. "Please, Mr. Reynolds, there's no need to apologize." "But there is," Reynolds insisted. "The way you were treated, it was unacceptable." May smiled slightly. "Tell me, do you know who I am now?" Reynolds blinked, caught off guard by the direct question. "Well, your husband mentioned on the phone that he's the CEO of Pacific Innovation Group." He glanced down at the black card. "And this card is only available to clients with substantial resources. So you know my husband's position and you've seen my credit card," May noted. "But you still don't know who I am." Reynolds shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I apologize if I'm not offended," May assured him. "I'm making a point. Earlier today, your staff didn't know anything about me, so they made assumptions based on my appearance. Now you know something about my husband and our financial situation, so you're making different assumptions. But in both cases, the assumptions aren't about who I am as a person." Reynolds was silent for a moment, considering her words. "You're right," he finally admitted. "And that's a failure on our part," May nodded. "We all do it. We see someone and immediately place them in a category, rich or poor, important or unimportant. I'm guilty of it too sometimes." She looked out the window to the dealership floor, where she could see Derek watching the office door with barely concealed curiosity. Anthony Winters was still there too, pacing by the green monarch with a phone pressed to his ear, gesturing animatedly. "My husband grew up with nothing," May said, turning back to Reynolds. "His parents were immigrants who worked 14-hour days. They lived in a one-bedroom apartment and he slept on a pull-out couch until he was 18. Even after he built his company, people still judged him by his accent, his clothes, his background." Reynolds looked down at the black card again. "And yet he succeeded." "He did," May agreed. "And do you know what he says is the secret to his success?" Reynolds leaned forward slightly, genuinely curious. "What?" "Looking for value where others don't see it," May replied. While everyone else was chasing the obvious opportunities, he paid attention to the overlooked ones. It's how he built Pacific Innovation from a startup in his garage to what it is today. The mention of Pacific Innovation seemed to trigger something in Reynolds's memory. His eyes widened slightly. Wait, Pacific Innovation Group? Isn't that the company that just acquired Tech Fusion for $3 billion? May nodded. The deal was finalized last week. Reynolds stared at her with new understanding. The acquisition had been all over the business news, one of the biggest tech deals of the year. And your husband is Li Jiang, May confirmed. Though I should clarify, he prefers to be called the founder, not the CEO. He says titles make people lazy. Reynolds let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Li Jiang. I read an article about him just last month. They called him the invisible billionaire because he avoids publicity and still drives a 10-year-old car. He looked up at May, the pieces finally clicking into place. Which is why you're here today, May smiled. His birthday is next week. I thought it was time for an upgrade. Outside the office, the commotion on the dealership floor had grown. Word had clearly spread about who was sitting in the manager's office. Salespeople were straightening their ties and peering toward the door while pretending not to. Even Anthony Winters had stopped his phone call and was watching with undisguised interest. Reynolds picked up the black card and began typing on his computer. Mrs. Jiang, it would be our honor to help you surprise your husband. The Phantom GT Celestial is an excellent choice. Understated but exceptional, much like your husband's approach to business, from what I've read. As Reynolds processed the payment, May's phone rang again. She smiled at the name on the screen. It's my daughter's school. Do you mind if I take this? Of course not, Reynolds said, continuing with the transaction. May answered the call, her voice immediately softening. Hello? Yes, this is Lynn's mother. Oh, is everything okay? She listened for a moment, her expression growing concerned. I see. Yes, I can come pick her up now. Tell her I'll be there in 20 minutes. No, it's no trouble at all. Thank you for calling. She ended the call and looked apologetically at Reynolds. I'm sorry, but I need to go. My daughter isn't feeling well. Reynolds nodded understandingly. Of course, family comes first. We can finish the paperwork another time, or I could bring it to you if that's more convenient. Another time would be fine, May said, standing up. I'll come back tomorrow, perhaps a bit more dressed for the occasion. She smiled, glancing down at her dirt-stained jeans. Reynolds stood as well, extending his hand. Your appearance is perfectly fine, Mrs. Jiang. It's we who need to adjust our perspective, not you. As they walked out of the office together, the entire showroom seemed to freeze. Every salesperson, including Derek, stood straighter. Anthony Winters had positioned himself directly in their path, his earlier rudeness replaced by a businessman's calculated charm. Mrs. Jiang, he said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. Anthony Winters, Winters Real Estate Development. I believe we got off on the wrong foot earlier. I had no idea you were Li Jiang's wife. May looked at his hand for a moment before shaking it briefly. Mr. Winters, I hope you find the car you're looking for. Actually, Winters continued, not letting her pass, I've been trying to reach your husband for months about a potential partnership. Pacific Innovation's smart home technology would be perfect for my new luxury development in. You'll have to contact his office. May cut in politely but firmly. I don't discuss business matters for my husband. Of course, Winters backpedaled. But perhaps you could mention my name. I've left dozens of messages with his assistants, but you know how these things go. Sometimes a personal connection is all it takes. May's expression remained pleasant, but her eyes cooled slightly. Mr. Winters, I need to pick up my daughter from school. She's not feeling well. Just 1 minute of your time, Winters pressed. Your husband and I could do great things together. My developments reach exactly the type of high net worth individuals Pacific Innovation wants to. Mr. Winters, Reynolds interjected. Mrs. Jiang has made it clear she needs to leave. Derek, seeing an opportunity to redeem himself, stepped forward. Sir, I'd be happy to show you the features of the Monarch while Mrs. Jiang attends to her family matter. Winters ignored them both, still focused on May. Here's my card. Just pass it along to your husband, that's all I ask. May finally took the card, tucking it into her pocket. I'll make sure he gets it. Now, if you'll excuse me, my daughter is waiting. As she walked toward the exit, the sea of salespeople parted before her. She could feel their eyes on her back. Their perception of her completely transformed in the space of an hour. She was no longer the shabby gardener who had wandered in by mistake. She was Mrs. Li Jiang, wife of a billionaire, worthy of their attention and respect. Outside in the parking lot, May slid into her old sedan, the same one that had drawn dismissive glances when she arrived. She sat for a moment looking back at the dealership where faces were still pressed against the glass watching her. Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband. "How did it go? Did you find something I'll like?" May smiled as she typed her reply. "I found the perfect car. But more importantly, I found out exactly who values what in that place." She started the engine and pulled away from Hartford Motors, leaving behind a showroom full of people who had just learned a valuable lesson about judging books by their covers. Tomorrow she would return to finish the paperwork, perhaps wearing something a bit nicer. Not because she needed to impress anyone, but because sometimes it was fun to keep people guessing. The elementary school was only 15 minutes from the dealership. May pulled into the visitor parking space and hurried toward the front office, her mind still processing the events at Hartford Motors. When she entered the small waiting room, she immediately spotted her daughter sitting on a plastic chair, head tilted back against the wall with a cool compress on her forehead. "Lynn," May called softly, moving quickly to her side. Lynn looked up, her face brightening despite her obvious discomfort. "Mom, you came fast." "Of course I did." May pressed her hand against Lynn's cheek, feeling the warmth of a mild fever. "How are you feeling?" "My head hurts and my throat feels scratchy," Lynn said, leaning against her mother's shoulder. At 10 years old, she was at that precious age where she was trying to be grown up, but still craved her mother's comfort when feeling unwell. The school nurse approached with a clipboard. "Mrs. Zhang, Lynn's temperature is 100.4. Nothing too serious, but given the school policy—" "I understand," May nodded, signing the release form. "Thank you for calling me." As they walked to the car, Lynn glanced at her mother's dirty jeans and gardening sweater. "Were you working in the garden again?" May smiled. "I was, but then I went to look at something special for Dad's birthday." Lynn's eyes widened with interest. "What is it?" "It's a surprise," May said, helping her daughter into the car. "But I think he's going to love it." "Is that why you have dirt on your knees?" Lynn asked, always observant. "Did you have to dig something up?" May laughed. "No, I just didn't change after gardening. I went to a fancy car place wearing these old clothes." Lynn wrinkled her nose. "Were they mean to you?" "People are sometimes mean to me when I wear my science camp shirt instead of pretty clothes." May glanced at her daughter, feeling a familiar pang in her chest. Even at 10, Lynn was already noticing how the world treated people differently based on appearances. "Some of them were at first," she admitted, "but they changed their attitude after a while." "After they found out who Dad is?" Lynn asked with the directness only children possess. May nodded slowly. "Yes, unfortunately, that's how it often works. People treat you one way when they think you're nobody special, and another way when they think you're important." "That's stupid," Lynn declared with conviction. "You're still the same person." "Exactly," May agreed, pulling out of the school parking lot. "That's a very wise observation." "Dad says the same thing," Lynn said, closing her eyes as the sun hit her face. "He says people were super nice to him after his company got big, but some of them were really mean before that." "Your dad is a smart man," May said. "That's why I married him." By the time they arrived home, Lynn's fever had gone up slightly. May helped her change into pajamas and tucked her into bed, bringing her favorite books and a cup of warm honey lemon tea. "Will you tell Dad about the car tonight?" Lynn asked between sips of tea. "No, it's going to be a surprise for his birthday next week," May said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Can you keep a secret?" Lynn nodded solemnly. "I'm the best secret keeper in my class. Ava told me that." "Then it's our secret," May said, placing a cool cloth on Lynn's forehead. "Now try to rest. I'll be right downstairs if you need anything." After making sure Lynn was comfortable, May went to her bedroom to change. For tomorrow's return to the dealership, she selected a simple but elegant outfit: tailored black pants, a silk blouse in deep blue, and low heels. Professional but not flashy, she laid them out on the bed just as her phone rang. "Hey, how did the car shopping go?" Her husband's warm voice came through the speaker. "It was educational," May replied. "How's your day?" "The usual. 3 meetings about the same problem that could have been 1 email." Lee sounded tired but content. "What happened at the dealership? Did they treat you well?" May hesitated, not wanting to upset him. "Not at first," she admitted. "But once the manager found out who you were, the red carpet rolled out pretty quickly." Lee's sigh was heavy with familiar frustration. I'm sorry, May, I should have gone with you. No, it's fine. Actually, it was interesting to see how they behaved. A good reminder of why we try to raise Lynn to look beyond appearances. Speaking of our daughter, how is she? The school called me after they couldn't reach you. She has a fever, but nothing serious. She's resting now. May moved to the window, looking out at their garden. Not the manicured landscape that many of their wealthy neighbors preferred, but a vibrant mix of vegetables, herbs, and flowers that she tended herself. I'm going back to the dealership tomorrow to finalize everything. Want me to come with you? I can move some things around. No need, May said. I think I can handle Hartford Motors now. After they hung up, May checked on Lynn, who had fallen asleep with a book open across her chest. She carefully removed it, kissed her daughter's forehead, and went downstairs to prepare dinner. The next morning, after Lynn's fever had broken and her husband had left for work, May dropped her daughter off with her grandmother and drove back to Hartford Motors. This time, she parked her old sedan right in front of the entrance, no longer feeling self-conscious about the contrast between her car and the luxury vehicles surrounding it. When she entered the showroom wearing her silk blouse and tailored pants, the transformation in the staff's behavior was immediate and dramatic. Derek, who had dismissed her the day before, rushed forward with a smile so wide it must have hurt his face. Mrs. Zhang, welcome back to Hartford Motors. Mr. Reynolds is expecting you. May I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Perhaps a tour of our accessories department while you wait. May gave him a polite smile. No, thank you. I'll just see Mr. Reynolds now. Of course, right away. Derek practically tripped over himself, leading her to the manager's office. Reynolds stood when she entered, extending his hand with genuine warmth. Mrs. Zhang, thank you for coming back. I have all the paperwork ready for the Phantom GT Celestial. We can finalize everything today if you'd like. That would be perfect, May replied, taking the seat he offered. As Reynolds went through the sales documents, May noticed a small commotion outside the glass walls of his office. A group of salespeople had gathered, and at their center was Anthony Winters, gesturing animatedly while looking in her direction. Is everything all right? She asked Reynolds, nodding toward the group. Reynolds glanced up and frowned. Mr. Winters has been here since we opened this morning. He seems very eager to speak with you again. I see, May said, turning her attention back to the paperwork. Well, I'm here to buy a car, not to network. Reynolds nodded appreciatively. Exactly as it should be. Now, about the delivery date. We can have the car ready as soon as tomorrow, or we can hold it for your husband's birthday next week. I'd like it delivered on his birthday if possible, to our home as a surprise. We can absolutely arrange that, Reynolds assured her. It would be our pleasure. As they finished the transaction, Reynolds handed her an elegant folder containing all the documentation. Mrs. Zhang, I want to thank you for giving us a second chance after yesterday's misunderstanding. May accepted the folder with a slight nod. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mr. Reynolds. The question is what they do with it. When they emerged from the office, the waiting crowd tried to appear casual, but their eager expressions gave them away. Derek stepped forward immediately. Mrs. Zhang, if there's anything else we can help you with, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. In fact, I'd be happy to be your personal consultant for any future automotive needs. Before May could respond, Anthony Winters pushed through the group. Mrs. Zhang, I was hoping to catch you. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I realized I didn't properly introduce myself or my company. May maintained her polite smile. Mr. Winters, as I mentioned yesterday, if you want to discuss business with my husband, you'll need to contact his office. Of course, Winters said smoothly. But since we're both here, I thought perhaps we could have lunch. I know a wonderful place just down the street. Very exclusive, Reynolds stepped in. Mr. Winters, Mrs. Zhang has completed her transaction and is free to go about her day. Winters ignored him, focusing intently on May. Just 30 minutes of your time. I promise it will be worth your while. My development projects have partnered with several major tech companies, and Pacific Innovation would be a perfect fit for... Mr. Winters, May interrupted gently but firmly. I appreciate your interest, but I don't make business decisions for Pacific Innovation, and I don't arrange meetings for my husband. If you want to work with the company, there are proper channels. Winters' smile faltered. But surely as his wife, you have his ear. A good word from you would... My husband values my opinion, May acknowledged, but he built his company by making smart decisions, not by taking meetings as personal favors. If your proposal has merit, his team will recognize that without my involvement. A silence fell over the group as Winter's face reddened slightly. He hadn't expected to be refused so directly, especially in front of an audience. May turned to Reynolds. "Thank you for your help today. I look forward to the delivery next week." As she walked toward the exit, she heard Winters mutter to someone, "Can you believe that? Acting like she's too important to have lunch when yesterday she looked like she'd been digging ditches." May paused at the door, considering whether to respond. Then she smiled to herself and continued walking. Some people never learned, and it wasn't her job to teach them. Outside in the sunlight, she took a deep breath of fresh air. The car would make Lee happy, but more importantly, she'd been true to herself throughout this experience. Not playing games, not flaunting wealth, just being the same person, whether in gardening clothes or silk. As she drove away from Hartford Motors, she realized that while money could buy a Phantom GT Celestial, it couldn't buy character. And character, her grandmother had always told her, was the only thing worth having that nobody could take away. A week passed quickly. The morning of Lee's birthday dawned bright and clear, perfect for the surprise May had planned. She woke early, slipping out of bed while her husband still slept, and padded downstairs to prepare a special breakfast. Lynn was already awake, sitting at the kitchen counter with an excited grin. "Is the car coming today?" she whispered, practically bouncing on her stool. May nodded, putting a finger to her lips. "Mr. Reynolds said they'll deliver it at 10 o'clock. Dad will be at his home office video meeting then, with the perfect view of the driveway." Lynn clapped her hands silently. "He's going to freak out." "I hope so." May laughed, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "Now help me with these pancakes." Birthday breakfasts are a team effort. They worked together, mixing batter and slicing fruit, while May's mind drifted to the arrangements she'd made with Hartford Motors. Reynolds had been exceptionally accommodating, offering to personally oversee the delivery and promising that the car would arrive in perfect condition, complete with a simple ribbon, as she had requested. No flashy presentation, just the car itself, which was spectacular enough. When Lee finally came downstairs, drawn by the smell of coffee and pancakes, his face lit up. "What's all this?" "Happy birthday," Lynn shouted, running to give him a hug. "We made your favorites," May said, leaning in to kiss him. Lee looked at the spread on the table: blueberry pancakes, crispy bacon, fresh fruit, and a small pile of presents wrapped in simple paper. "You two are too good to me." "We know," Lynn giggled, pulling him to his chair. "Now eat so you can open your presents." The morning unfolded exactly as May had planned. Lee opened his gifts, books he'd wanted, a handmade card from Lynn, a new watch from May, with genuine appreciation for each one. When it was nearly 10, May casually suggested he take his coffee to his home office. "You have that video call at 10, right?" she reminded him. "The one with the Tokyo investors?" Lee glanced at his new watch and nodded. "You're right. Thanks for remembering." He kissed the top of Lynn's head and squeezed May's hand. Best birthday morning in years. As soon as he disappeared into his office, May and Lynn exchanged excited glances and moved to the kitchen window that overlooked the driveway. Right on schedule, a Hartford Motors delivery truck appeared at the gate, followed by a sleek black town car. "They're here," Lynn whispered loudly. "Do we go outside?" "Not yet," May said. "Let's watch from here first." They peered through the window as the gates opened and the vehicles made their way up the long driveway. The truck stopped directly in front of the house, perfectly positioned to be seen from Lee's office window. The town car parked behind it, and Reynolds stepped out, immaculately dressed in a suit and tie despite the early hour. What May hadn't expected was who else emerged from the town car. Derek, looking nervous but eager, and to her surprise, Anthony Winters, who appeared to be in the middle of an animated conversation with Reynolds. "Who are those men?" Lynn asked, pressing her nose against the glass. "People from the car place," May explained, frowning slightly. She hadn't invited Winters. What was he doing here? Outside, Reynolds was directing the delivery team as they carefully backed the Phantom GT Celestial off the truck. The car was even more stunning in the morning light, its special paint shifting between deep blue and purple as it caught the sun. A simple red ribbon was tied in a bow on the hood, elegant and understated, just as she had requested. "Let's go outside," May suggested, taking Lynn's hand. "I want to check something before Dad sees the car." They slipped out the front door just as Reynolds was instructing the delivery team where to park the vehicle. When he spotted May, his face brightened. "Mrs. Zhang, good morning. We've brought your husband's birthday surprise right on schedule." "I see that," May said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Though I don't recall inviting Mr. Winters to the delivery." Reynolds' smile faltered. He glanced back at Winters, who was now striding toward them with the confidence of someone who believed he belonged everywhere. "Ah, yes. Mr. Winters was at the dealership this morning when we were preparing to leave. He mentioned he had some business in this neighborhood and asked if he could join us. I should have checked with you first. My apologies." Before May could respond, Winters reached them. "Mrs. Zhang, what a beautiful home you have. I hope you don't mind my tagging along. I was telling Tom here that our companies really should explore some collaborative opportunities." May was saved from having to answer by the sound of the front door opening. Lee stood there, confusion evident on his face as he took in the scene. The delivery truck, the group of people, and most of all, the stunning car now parked in his driveway with a red ribbon on the hood. "May?" he questioned, stepping outside. "What's going on?" Lynn couldn't contain herself any longer. "Surprise, Dad? Happy birthday. Mom got you a super cool car." Lee's eyes widened as he moved closer to the vehicle, taking in its sleek lines and unusual color. "This is for me? Happy birthday," May said softly, coming to stand beside him. "I thought it was time to retire your old car." Lee shook his head in amazement, running his hand along the car's surface. "It's incredible. But May, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," she said simply. "You deserve something special." As Lee examined the car with growing appreciation, Winters saw his opportunity and stepped forward, hand extended. "Mr. Zhang, Anthony Winters, Winters Real Estate Development. It's an honor to finally meet you. I've been trying to connect with your team about a potential partnership." Lee looked up, momentarily confused by the stranger's approach. May touched his arm gently. "Mr. Winters was at the dealership when I was purchasing your car. He's been quite persistent about meeting you." Understanding dawned in Lee's eyes. He shook Winters's hand briefly, but didn't engage with the business talk. Instead, he turned to Reynolds and Derek. "You helped my wife with this surprise?" Reynolds stepped forward. "Hartford Motors was honored to assist Mrs. Zhang, sir. The Phantom GT Celestial is one of our most exclusive vehicles, and we knew it would be perfect for someone of your discernment." Lee nodded, then looked at Derek with a raised eyebrow. "And you are?" Derek swallowed nervously. "Derek Wilson, sir. I was the first salesperson to assist your wife when she visited our dealership." "I see," Lee said, his expression revealing nothing. "And how was that experience?" Derek glanced anxiously at Reynolds, then at May. She kept her face neutral, curious to see what he would say. Derek began, then straightened his shoulders. "To be honest, sir, I didn't provide the level of service your wife deserved when she first came in. I made assumptions based on her appearance that day, and I was wrong. Completely wrong." A small silence followed this admission. Winters looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Reynolds seemed surprised but pleased by Derek's honesty. Lee studied the younger man for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for your honesty. We all make mistakes. The important thing is whether we learn from them." He turned to his wife, taking her hand. "This is an incredible gift, May. Thank you." Then he smiled at Lynn, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "Want to see the inside, kiddo?" As father and daughter explored the new car, May spoke quietly to Reynolds. "Thank you for handling the delivery. The car is perfect." "It was our pleasure, Mrs. Zhang," Reynolds replied. "And I want you to know that we've implemented some changes at Hartford Motors since your visit. All our staff will now receive additional training on providing consistent service to every customer, regardless of appearance." May nodded appreciatively. "That's good to hear." Winters, seeing that Lee was occupied with the car and unlikely to engage in business talk, approached May again. "Mrs. Zhang, I realize this isn't the best time, but perhaps I could leave my card again. My development would be the perfect showcase for Pacific Innovation's smart home technology." Before May could respond, Lee called out from inside the car. "May, you need to see these features. Lynn's already figuring out the entertainment system." May smiled apologetically at Winters. "Excuse me. It's my husband's birthday after all." As she walked away, she heard Reynolds telling Winters firmly, "I think it's time we let the family enjoy their celebration, don't you?" The Phantom GT Celestial was indeed spectacular, with features that even May hadn't known about. Lee explored every button and setting with boyish enthusiasm, while Lynn bounced from seat to seat, discovering new things to exclaim over. "How did you keep this a secret?" Lee asked, looking at May with wonder. "And why did you go to the dealership in your gardening clothes? I thought you were planning to order something online." May laughed. "I wanted to see how they treated regular customers. It was educational." Lee's expression softened with understanding. And I'm guessing they didn't pass the test initially. "Let's just say that Mr. Reynolds has a new staff training program in the works," May replied with a small smile. By the time the Hartford Motors team left, with Winters reluctantly in tow, the morning had turned into a perfect family celebration. Lee insisted they all take a drive together in the new car, with Lynn buckled safely in the back seat, exclaiming over every new discovery. As they cruised along the coastal road near their home, Lee reached over and squeezed May's hand. "You know, this car is amazing, but it's not the best gift I received today." "No?" May asked, raising an eyebrow. Lee shook his head. "The best gift is having a wife who sees people for who they really are. Not what they wear or what they own, but their true character. You've always been that way, even before we had anything." From the back seat, Lynn piped up. "Mom says you can't buy character, but you can buy really cool cars with massage chairs in the back seat." They laughed together as the Phantom GT Celestial carried them forward, its unusual color shifting in the sunlight, remarkable and beautiful, yet somehow less extraordinary than the simple wisdom that had guided May all along. True value comes not from what you possess, but from who you are, even when no one is watching.